Hello, my lovely learners. Welcome to Blooming Great Education. My name is Meredith. Today's lesson is a writing lesson. It's suitable for Year 5 students who are preparing for the Gifted and Talented test. And it's one of my feedback lessons. I know I do lots of these. It's because research shows it's a really effective way of helping to improve students' writing. What I do in these lessons is I show you a sample of students' writing and we have a look at what, in this case, she has done really well and areas that she could have improved. I've shown samples of her work a few times because she always does a lovely job. So let's get started. I'll show you the stimulus to start off with. So this is the stimulus that I chose, and I chose this one because I thought that it had a lot of scope for, like, literally you could do a polar bear on ice, or you can do figuratively like a person clinging to life on their little tiny iceberg. So that's the stimulus that I chose, and here is the story that we're going to have a look at today. I was starving. I was thirsty. I was exhausted. Billions of my friends and family had already died. I didn't want to die. I couldn't. I was probably the last of my kind, and me, only on a little slab of ice, didn't help one bit. There was no fish in this part of the ocean. The water had too much junk in it. I had no chance to survive in any way. Stranded in the infinite stretch of water, no way to stretch my paws. All I could do was hope. Days passed and still no help. The ice block got smaller every day from the heat of my body. Suddenly, a dark shape emerged from the depths below. I got a glimpse of a fin. Then I knew. A shark. I was too weak to fight it. It suddenly opened its mouth to devour a humongous chunk off my ice drift. It came up again, but before it could do anything, I swung my claws in a ferocious arc, smacking the predator right in the nose, driving it away. My ice block got smaller, probably the size of a chair. My whole body ached. My claws and legs got stiff. There were no more of my species any longer out there. But I could not lose hope. I had to survive. I had already lost my cub and everything, family, home, friends, crack. The ice split. It was too fragile. The split made the ice coarse and sharp with smooth edges. The opaque white slowly became more and more transparent. Suddenly, on the horizon, I saw a shape. Land. I stood up, too feeble, my legs weren't working. I was a few meters away. I couldn't make it. I passed out and fell in the ocean floor. Gone. Forever. It was the end of time, my species, everything I wanted, all because of people, greenhouse gases. We needed to take better care of the environment. Any futures may not be possible. Okay, so she is a lovely writer. And there's lots of magnificent things that she's done in here. I love this infinite stretch of water, this vocabulary here. Ferocious arc, smacking, because most students would say hitting. Smacking is a much better word. Coarse and sharp, opaque, transparent. Lots of really good vocabulary in there. And even just the way that she builds up the tension. So there's a little bit of information, then more information, then more information, and it just flows beautifully. So here in this introduction, she introduces nicely the character, the polar bear, the problem that this polar bear is stranded on the ice cap, building up the tension in here nicely, and then there's a shark. So there's sort of a problem within the problem. So the main problem is that that this ice is shrinking, but that's the problem that needs to be solved. But then there's this spike of climatic excitement within it. And then the story continues to, I guess, sadden as the ice is falling apart from the poor polar bear's body heat. And then finally, we have this very sad ending where it becomes unconscious and falls into the water. So she's done a lovely, lovely job in feeble, another great word, in building the tension, having that climax in the middle where so this would be if another child, if in another story, this would be the problem part of the story. So there's an overarching problem of the polar bear on this ice cap, and it being the last of the polar bears, and then there's this spike within it which gives it a bit of tension, because otherwise it's just sort of a polar bear floating, and now he's still floating, and now he's floating a little bit more. And so it puts something into the story that makes it a little bit interesting as the story is progressing. And it also adds to the overall tension because the shark comes and bites off a chunk of the iceberg, which is already disappearing. So the way that she builds that story is really good. Okay, let's have a look at areas of improvement. Now, one of the things that she doesn't do is actually make it clear that she's talking about the polar bear. So it comes from the first person perspective. It is something on an iceberg, and it's in the middle paragraph. It's revealed that she's my claws here. My claws again. She's lost her cub. So it would have been great if she had just put in a couple of little words to help you know that what you're actually talking about is a polar bear. So although my snowy white sides, my snowy white fur kept me warm, my body heat made it degrade. I made the iceberg melt. I snuffled my snout through the snow, or I snuffled my snout through the water looking for some fish to eat. Just trying to give a couple more clues to the reader. You don't have to say, I'm a polar bear, and you don't want to, but you want to give those little clues about specifically what animal it is. Now, it's not the end of the world that she hasn't done that, because it's an animal experiencing this experience. But to nitpick, to improve a couple of little things in there, that would have been great. Another thing that she could have done to improve, so it says that at the end here, when we get to our conclusion, suddenly on the horizon I saw land. In my mind, the iceberg had been stationary. So if she just put a little bit of like a word that was a sentence that was like floating through the water, that would have helped. Now that is me nitpicking to try to make it even more fabulous, and then it's already fabulous. Right. This is the main thing that really needed to be fixed. It's the conclusion. So it was the end of me, my species, everything I wanted, all because people, greenhouse gases. We need to take better care of our environment, or any futures may not be possible. So she spent the whole story coming from the perspective of the polar bear, and the polar bear doesn't know anything about greenhouse gases and the way that the humans are damaging the climate. And so in those last couple of sentences, she switched over to a human's perspective. So she needed to just write those couple of sentences coming from the polar bear's perspective. So let's have a look at how we might have been able to do that. My species, everything I wanted. So it was the end of me, my species, all because of people. They came in with their big, so that it's not going to know where the ship is, but with their, maybe you should just make it easy and just say they came in with their big machines and poured their poison into the water and left their junk behind, and poisoned our people, something along those lines. So just to say exactly what she said, but just say it from how the polar bear would experience it. So if the polar bear is, if they're pumping oil or chemicals into the water, then he's going to feel poisoned. If they're dropping rubbish into the water, then there's strange food that makes him feel sick. If they're killing them, then killing them with their strange claws, harpooning them with their strange long claws. So some of that will be in the WAG lesson that that's if you go into the description box, and there's a lesson called the WAG where I explain how you can look at things, look at humans from a polar bear's perspective. And that's a really good lesson because it's really thinking quite uniquely. So the extract in that video, the couple of pages from the book that we look at are from George R.R. Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones. So he's an extremely successful writer, brilliant writer. And so he really shows that skill at being able to write a cool idea. Okay, that brings me to the end of the lesson. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you could like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. It really helps me out. And I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.